Well, I don't know what's going on where you guys live, but around this nape of the woods, neck of the wape, where I'm from, it's been getting pretty cold. It's been darn cold. 32 degrees on a bunch of days. And I know a lot of you guys have noticed, if you've been watching the videos for a long time, that I've lost a few pounds, and I have. Thanks for noticing. Anyway, without all that insulation to help keep me warm, I get cold when somebody leaves the fridge door on too long. And that's causing a real problem with the green machine, because back when we changed out the motor on this bad girl, we found out the heater core was busted. I had a bunch of stuff going on and just did not want to bother with that because it was the summertime and it was warm and I didn't need a heater. But as it turns out, I need a heater. Why do I need a heater? Well, because it's Thanksgiving weekend. And I really should be thinking about just putting this car away for good for the winter and starting to talk about the winter projects that we're going to do to it. But honestly, I got the itch to drive it one last time before we put her away for the winter, and we have an opportunity to do that. There's a show going on in Rhode Island at a restaurant called the Beef Barn, which, honestly, great name. I mean, how can you ignore that? And I would like to go to it. But I would also like to not go hypothermic, so I want to make sure that the heater's working. So today, I'm going to see if we can't quick change the heater core on this thing. And I'm going to try to show as much of this as possible because I haven't seen a whole lot of videos online showing how to do this. So I hesitate to call this instructional because you guys know me, I barely get through this stuff on my own, let alone telling somebody else how to do it. But we'll try to make this as educational as possible, and maybe you'll glean something from it. It might be very well how not to do something or what to avoid, but maybe there'll be some good visuals and maybe you'll get a laugh along the way. So come on and join me. Now our heater core sits right in there, right behind that little sheet metal enclosure. Now it's important to note that this is a car that does not have factory air conditioning. If you have a factory air conditioning car, then your instructions or your process for how you do this, it's going to be different than what my process is going to be. So that's just your reality. This should be doable from the engine side of the car. I don't think that I'm going to have to go into the interior of the car to get any of this done. That is my hope. That is the promise of the internet. We will see if that's actually true or not. But in order to do that, we are still going to have to do some work. And that is going to include some removal of parts. In order to get away easily on that side, I am going to have to remove this wheel, which means I'm going to jack the car up a little bit. And I'm also going to have to take that wheel well, maybe not all the way off, but I'm definitely going to have to remove a lot of the components holding it in place, especially towards the back. And that is because I need to get to the screws that are holding the inner part of this on, and I can't get there from here. So we need to remove, or at least be able to move out of the way, this inner fender well to make that happen. So that's what we're working on. I think these are 1/2-inch nuts. We'll check those out. Yep, 1/2-inch. Internet for the win. Oh, but not that one. Replacement maybe? All right, in the end, there were a couple of bolts that were, let's call it obstinate, but we got them. Nothing crazy. It's really just a bunch of 1/2 inch bolts that are all held in place by clips. So the clips are the part that can be a pain once these things get old. Sometimes the nuts that are attached to the clips can spin. Sometimes the clips themselves can break loose and spin. And when that happens, the bolt's just going to spin in your wrench. When that happens, just jam a screwdriver in there and pry it, put a little pressure on it to try to coax it along, and that puts friction against the nut or the clip so that as you're hitting it with your impact gun, it actually will walk its way out. It's a little bit of a pain. I was not able to capture that beautiful ballet on film because I ran out of hands and ran out of tripod space, but you get the idea. It's doable. And so now, let's show you what we got here. So you should be able to see through this little crack here, if I can master this well enough, that we can get in here and get to that heater box core. So I should be able to get to all my nuts and bolts from this backside and gain access to this. That's also a blower motor access, so if you ever need to get to that thing, you can too. Remember, we're just looking for access here. We're not actually looking to do any surgery. I don't need to pull anything out through this hole. I just need to be able to get wrenches and sockets and stuff in through here. And I still have topside access, so I don't have to go nuts here. Probably would have been nicer if this had quit on me before we painted everything, but well, whatever. These are 7/16 inch nuts, by the way. If you're keeping track on the home game, looking to do this yourself, it is, of course, the nuts that are the hardest for me to reach that are giving me the problem. Because that's the way it works. So what's happening is that the bolts on the back side of this are spinning free. And so as a result, I'm never going to get those things off that way. So that same trick that I talked about on the inner fender of having to apply pressure to be able to get that off, I'm probably going to have to try that here. But before I go there, I'm going to see if I can't get the nuts on the inside in here where it's difficult to reach. Let's see if we can get to that. I'm only spying one bolt, that's it. So hopefully that's all it is, and we'll see. I'm going to go after that though. No seeing that with the camera, but that's just in the bottom. Whoop, the camera's getting a lazy eye. Back, back. There you go. So we're going to hit that. This is in the bottom left-hand corner of the heater box as you are staring at it from the front of the car. So we're going to go at this and move on. So predictably, here is our situation. We've got two nuts, or two bolts technically, that are sitting there and spinning free as I try to get those nuts off the back side. So easy fix. I just called Declan down. We're going to see if he can't be my second set of hands here, and he'll hold the socket on these while I rip the nut off the other side. So problem should be solved in a minute. In Declan for the win. That actually happened so quick I didn't even have a chance to. Ooh. Oh. Okay, let's do this. You know, when you're your own editor of your own video, it's really tempting sometimes to edit out all the stuff that makes you look really dumb. Unfortunately, if I did that, these videos would probably only be about 3 minutes long every week. So Sometimes I leave them in. The light bar that I have hanging from the hood was hanging just enough weight in just the wrong spot that it was actually causing the hood a problem to stay up. So if I looked at the hood hinge the wrong way, it collapsed on me. This actually happened several times, and this is just the one that I actually caught on video. What I'm looking for here now is the one bolt that's hanging up that heater box. So if you're going and trying to do this on your own, what you're going to find is that in the 12 o'clock, or it's actually probably technically the 1 o'clock position in relation to that bolt that I showed you on camera earlier that's in sort of the 7 o'clock position under the blower motor, there's another nut on that heater box. You can't see it. It is completely blind. The only way you're going to be able to see that is if you take that entire passenger side fender off the car, which I wasn't about to do. So in this instance, you're seeing me sort of look off into the distance as I tried to fish my fat arm up inside there with a big ratchet with extensions on it to try to get onto that bolt. It's doable, but it's all done by feel, essentially. So it was a fair amount of hunting around blind. There were a fair amount of curse words invented, although ironically, no throwing of wrenches. I did actually manage to get onto that bolt. It's a pretty fine threaded bolt, so it takes a long time to actually pull off of there, more than you'd think, but did manage to pull that out. However, not the end of my woes, because dropping that inner fender wall really only gives you just the minimum amount of access that you need to get this job done. And you'll see in a second that even once you have all the bolts off, getting that heater box out, it's like a carnival game. Well, that was easy. Nope. Waking nightmare. Yeah, it turns out it is not a cakewalk to access, even with this removed. And we definitely did have nestage in here. Gross. Look at that all out of there. But now you can see what we're dealing with here with our heater core. So it looks like we've got a clip here. This clip that's retaining that in place. See if we can get you to see that. All right, so you can see that little blue clippy thing. This little guy, a little retaining clip, so I think we're gonna have to pry him off and then finagle this guy out. We'll vacuum out the crud and then work our new guy in. All right, let's get on that. So with the clip out, I tried to now remove the heater core, and for a hot minute, I thought I could actually get this thing out through the front. Don't bother. You can't. The space isn't quite big enough. However, now that you've removed all the bolts from that heater cover, you can actually very easily just push this through the other side. So once you push it through, the heater box in the interior of the car is going to sort of pop out and drop off. You get free and easy access to it from the inside of the car. And then it becomes very easy to just retrieve that heater core from the inside, pluck it out of the box, and change it out from there. So lesson learned. I didn't learn that one from the internet. I learned that one the hard way. And now you've learned it the easy way. All right, so here's our old heater core versus our new. The old one, definitely an old brass unit. You can see how rotted away it was. I mean, you can see where the core was all rotted. That's where we were getting leaks. And this thing was just leaking like a sieve into the car. New one, the difference really is the routing on this piping, but I think it's going to be fine for us. We're not going to have a worry. So I'm going to hit it with the vacuum now, and we should be good to go. You know, I think before I go ahead and clean up everything, I'm going to rebuild that heater box. Oh, come on. You knew this was what I meant when I said rebuild, right? All right, we're vacuumed out. Let's see if we can get this thing back in. And I think the easiest way is actually for us to poke this heater box back through the dash a little and attend to it that way. Now we'll get this blue clip, this little guy, back installed. All right, so the score here is the easiest way to make this work is kind of a 50-50 gamble here, or 50-50 cooperation. The heater box on the interior of the car, once you get this exterior housing off, is basically just going to free float inside the car. That is going to be able to come loose. That's good. And you shouldn't have a lot of obstructions underneath the dash to be able to get to it. You don't have to do a lot there. It is going to be easiest to just remove the heater core from the inside of the car, from the heater box itself. That makes it nice and easy. You just pull it right off. It's also going to be easiest to slip it back into that. However, what I found was easiest was sort of maneuvering the heater core into its final position inside the heater box from outside. That way I didn't have to contort myself inside the car, and I was able to feed it in through the holes inside the firewall, feed the inlet and outlet in through the firewall, and get this into position, get the studs feeding through, and ready for everything to be bolted and tightened down. So now I think I'm ready to start to get things fastened back up. So here's my tip to you. As you go to put this retaining clip back onto the heater core, that's the clip that's actually going to keep the heater core in place in the heater box and keep it from rattling around, you're going to have to put a fair amount of pressure on it. And unless you have another person who can sit inside the car and brace the heater box against the firewall with their feet or something, you're going to want to make sure that that heater box is anchored to the firewall, so if you put pressure on this clip, it doesn't just undo all the work that you just struggled to make happen. So what I did was I just ran those nuts back onto the studs to hold the box to the firewall while I messed with this clip. It worked out pretty well. You don't have to put the nuts all the way on, it doesn't have to be completely cranked down. It's really just enough to make sure that you get a little bit of purchase so you can put some pressure on that clip and it will hold in place and it won't just pop back inside the car. Yes, this is going to be a lot of grunting and a lot of noise, but in my defense, the car is jacked up at this point, so I'm sort of stepping over and leaning over the fender and kind of crushing my chest at this point and exerting myself to try to get this in here. So give the guy a break. I'm not dying, and I'm really not that unhealthy, but this is a bit of a trick for me to do. Okay, come on. There it is. There we go. There we go. All right. Oh. Yowza. Whew. Now I'd love to show you this part, because that would mean I'd have really good visibility, but I don't. So I've got to go in here sort of blind to get these two bolts that go on up through the wheel well. We're going to be able to get the bottom one okay. I can sight that one ish, which is good because that'll give me enough vision to it that I can get the holes aligned and start that thread. And that should mean that I can just try to hunt by feel for the top one. And it ought to be aligned. But light's not going to help me here. This is 100% feel. It's funny, taking this out was easier because I could actually feel the bolt head. And now all I got to do is try to feel for that hole. That's a lot harder. I think I might have found it. Yeah, that did. Shocking. All right, let's get those bolts started inside. Okay, so heater core is in. That's all set now. The heater box is back installed. We're all buttoned up. The last thing that we have to do, two last things we have to do, is reinstall the fittings for the heater back into the water pump and back into the intake and rerun the hoses. But that is going to have to wait till tomorrow. And when I say tomorrow, I actually mean the day after tomorrow, because tomorrow is Turkey Day. So no working on the car tomorrow. There'll be other stuff to do. But day after Thanksgiving, I'll come in here and get that straightened out. We'll run some coolant in here, run the car, make sure that the coolant circulates so that we get everything topped off. And then we should be good to go, and I should have heat. And this should be a project done. Then I will take you guys along to the beef barn. I have a free moment, and it's time for me to put those lines back on. So the first thing I'm going to do is change out my fittings. Now, because I was running the car without the heater core in it, completely disconnected, I had just run plugs in place of the two spots on the intake manifold and on the water pump where you would normally have these fittings. These are the fittings that are actually going to go to our heater hoses. So I've got to remove those plugs and put in the heater hoses. Now here's the trick. I have to refresh myself on this every time I have to work on the heater core. So it's not like I have this innate in my brain, but I'm trying to get myself to remember this over time. On these small block Chevys, and I think on the big blocks too, in general, there's two size heater hoses on the same unit. There's one for the inlet and one for the outlet. The inlet is the higher pressure. That's the hot water coming in. The higher pressure is the smaller one. That's the 5/8. The outlet, that's what brings the now cooler coolant back in, is the larger one. That's the 3/4. So they're two different sizes hoses. That means if you've got your fittings in the right spots, if they're already there on the engine, you really kind of can't screw this up as long as you don't try to force the hoses on, because you'll put the 3/4 hose in the 3/4 fitting and the 5/8 hose in the 5/8 hose fitting, and you'll be all set. But in our case, I had to go back and sort of school myself and remind myself of how this system works. So basically, we're going to be taking hot water coming straight out of the intake manifold. That'll go into the heater core, and then that is going to flow through the heater core and then back out. And when it comes out, it goes back into the water pump. And the water pump is going to be drawing the cool water from the radiator and then circulating it through the engine. So the coolant that's coming through the heater core should be cooler than the water that's coming straight out of the engine, in theory, right? So first thing we're going to do, get these things installed. We're just going to put a little bit of thread sealant on these before we get them in there, and then we'll be all set. So what I'm going to do is start over here with my 5/8 hose, and we'll start over here on the heater core side. Get that all the way on as far as we can. And first I just want to make sure I get this sort of measured out roughly. We'll just get this laid in here to know how much hose we're actually going to need. Now we can do the big boy. Our return line, which is the 3/4. So now that I've got those sort of loosely in, now I can kind of see where I want my routing to be, so I can rough out how long I want to cut these hoses, or how short. I guess that depends on how you look at it. I think that wraps up what's worth filming on this job anyway. She's not exactly mid-season form at this point, but you know, frankly, this is the last hurrah before we end up putting some stable fuel stabilizer in this thing and putting her to bed for the winter and worrying about winter projects, of which we have plenty to work on. So I'm pretty happy with where it's at right now. We will end up still running some fluid through this, because now that we have reintroduced the heater core into the system, we basically have sort of a top end or an above the engine end of the system that should have fluid in it that doesn't. There's no way for me to artificially, or at least easily artificially, put fluid in that. So we've got to wait until we actually start the engine up. The good news is that that's outside the thermostat. So basically, as soon as the engine starts up, you should see some fluid that will just automatically start pumping through the engine, and then therefore pumping through that heater core. So it should pump through right away. We should see a drop in the radiator level right away, and we can just add to that. So it's not going to be too much of a challenge. It's not like we have to burp the entire system again. It shouldn't be too bad. But we've got that left for us to do, and otherwise it's just enjoying a cool, very cool cruise to the beef barn. And one last hurrah with the guys checking out the cars, and hopefully there's going to be cars to show you guys there. We'll see. Gassed up and on the road, we are cruising, and it's actually toasty in here. So we've only been on the road for a couple of minutes, but heater's on, feeling some warmth. It's not bad. It is freezing outside, but it's not bad in here, so we'll take it. It's a beautiful day. Absolutely gorgeous, blue skies, not a cloud in them, bright and clear, sunny, but freezing. It's only about, I think, 29 degrees when I last checked. It's supposed to get up to about 40 today, but it's going to feel pretty cool, and it's supposed to be breezy, but I'm going to imagine we're going to have a pretty good turnout, just based on what I see from the Facebook feed and just general buzz. There seems to be an awful lot of people itching for car events in the last several weeks. So I'm guessing that we're going to see some people who want to come out for this. So we'll see. Cross our fingers. So lots of firsts for me this one. I've never been to a car show before where I've had to wear a heated jacket and a knit cap with my hood up. I've never been to a car show before where people have propane heaters set up by their chairs. And yet still, there are over 400 cars here, and there are still cars coming in. There are people circling the lot looking for spaces. This is pretty much banged out. I can't believe how many cars are here. People are just still itching to get their cars out and to extend the season. And this is the last weekend in November. It's pretty insane. Thanksgiving was 2 days ago. It's nuts, but an amazing show. You kind of see all the cars that are here. Nuts. I gotta say, amazing show. The most surprising show that I've been to all year. 517 cars was the last count that I heard from somebody at the front gate. That's insane. 517 cars on November 29th. That is absurd. It's freezing out here, and we had that many cars showing up. It's awesome. It's great to see that the car community is alive and well and still just itching to drive. I think part of that's because they really haven't salted the roads in many places yet here, so a lot of guys are still willing to bring their cars out, and thankfully we were able to. So great day, got to hang out with some buddies one last time to have this last hurrah of the car season, and now I think it is time to put the car away for the rest of the season. I doubt that we're going to have it out again. This is probably time to put the fuel stabilizer in it and put it to bed for the winter and start to do those winter projects on it. But glad I got to take you guys out, show you around here this show a little bit. Glad I got to test out the heater in the car and make sure that that's working. And now it's time to head back home, put this to bed, and start on the winter projects.